In this video, I'll describe how to set up your podcast project for success, whether it's a personal project or an assignment for coursework. To help focus your project, one technique is to create a tagline. A tagline is a description of your podcast or episode in one sentence. Podcasts are a great way to communicate your perspective with a specific goal in mind. Do you want to convince a listener and present an argument? Maybe you want to investigate an event, place, or person. Or maybe you're explaining a concept. Here's an example of a tagline from the library podcast, Makers and Mavericks. Explore the intersection of emerging technology and people leading meaningful learning at Mount Royal University Library. Podcasts have different formats. Depending on your project, you may already have the format decided for you. Each format has pros and cons. What will work best for your topic? Roundtable discussions or gabfests are good for more informal exploration of topics or including multiple viewpoints. They can be off the cuff or planned out. Interview formats tend to suit deep dives into topics with experts. You can discuss a topic by yourself in a podcast episode in a monologue format. Narrative documentaries may include a mix of multiple interviews and sound recorded at different locations. Podcast episodes can also be completely fictional, much like a radio play. To plan out episodes, you may want to write out everything that is being said in a script or write out topics in point form in an outline, or perhaps you'll use both. You can also write out questions you'll ask in your interviews. Having your questions ready is essential for an interview podcast. Podcasting assignments may require a script, outline, or both. Whether you're using an outline or a script, it's first helpful to think of your episode as having an introduction, body, and conclusion. Unlike a written essay, you can get creative with the podcast and set the tone with music at the beginning and end of your podcast. The introduction is where you'll want to introduce the episode details. The body of the episode is where you'll include all your research, analysis, story, or interviews. Podcast episodes usually include concluding statements. You want to have a key takeaway for your listener. Finding the focus of your episode or podcast project is important. Most podcasts provide a clear statement about what the episode is about, who the participants are, and a brief introduction of what will be discussed. Let's listen to an example from the library podcast, Makers and Mavericks. Welcome to episode 4 of Makers and Mavericks. We're exploring the topic of open data at Mount Royal University's new open access data repository. I'm your host, Julia Guns, Public Services Assistant and Audiovisual Support at Mount Royal University Library. This podcast explores the intersection of tech and creativity here at the library. Brian Jackson is our guest today, a data librarian and subject librarian for Earth and Environmental Sciences, Policy Studies, Political Science, and Economics. We'll be chatting with Brian about his involvement in the new open access data repository and about data literacy. You'll need research for most formats of podcasts to create the body of your episode. Even if you are doing an interview format, you will need to do background research so you know what to ask your guests. Remember to research your guest and their work. Research what scholarly sources exist on the topic. You can also listen to other podcast episodes on the topic if available. If you are doing a narrative documentary format, you will research relevant people, places, and events. Depending on your assignment, there may be multiple areas to research. There are many different kinds of sources that can inform your podcast. Ask your librarian or archivist for help when in doubt. To help shape your research, an outline is helpful. Here's an example of what an outline may look like for a podcast episode. You can break the body of your episode down into main points. In one column of a table, you can create your main points, and in the other column, you can write out in point form what content and research you'll be including. Remember to keep things as concise as possible. You'll want to keep your listeners' attention. A script could be as simple as writing out word for word what you'll be saying, as in this example from the library podcast. Having a detailed script is useful, especially for when you'll be introducing the episode and mentioning specific details. This paragraph was approximately 30 seconds of podcast audio. It's a good idea to record a paragraph of your script and see how long the recording time is based on the pace of your speaking. If you're doing an interview, you can write out your questions in point form. This will help you keep your interview on track. It's best not to ask more questions than you'll need for the length of your episode. Cut down your questions to ask the most relevant and interesting ones. Using music is an important part of podcasting. You can set the tone and change mood using music. Look for high-quality audio files with WAV file format and a Creative Commons license. Go to creativecommons.org to learn more about the Creative Commons license or speak with the MRU copyright advisor at the library. It's a good idea to start looking for music at the beginning stage of your podcast. Now that you've organized your podcast content, you can begin to organize your equipment and software. The next video will explain how to do so based on your content and skill level. Congratulations! We can now check the first box on our list. Please watch our next video choosing your gear, recording location, and software for your podcast project. Look for these links in the video description. Thanks for watching.